What if the greatest night of an actor's life ended not in celebration, but heartbreak? In Hollywood's golden age, Oscars were more than trophies. They were immortality. Yet some vanished, melted, or were stolen under chilling circumstances. Here are 15 classic stars whose Oscars disappeared, with stories darker than the glitz suggests. Margaret O'Brien's vanishing childhood trophy. At just 7 years old, Margaret O'Brien was not only Hollywood's sweetheart, she was a phenomenon. She stole hearts with her unforgettable role in Meet Me in St. Louis. The Academy was so impressed by her performance, they awarded her a special juvenile Oscar, a miniature statuette created specifically for outstanding child performers. But what happened to that treasured Oscar would soon become stranger than any MGM plot. In the 1950s, O'Brien's housekeeper took the statuette for cleaning and never returned it. At first, Margaret thought the trophy was simply misplaced, but it soon became clear it was gone. For decades, the disappearance remained a mystery. O'Brien suspected theft, but no trace of the statuette ever surfaced. This case became one of the Academy's most peculiar mysteries, a stolen Oscar that seemed to vanish into thin air. Although O'Brien continued her career, the loss deeply hurt her. That little golden statue wasn't just a trophy. It symbolized her place in film history, a childhood dream made real. Losing it felt like erasing part of her identity. The Academy rarely replaced lost awards, so O'Brien lived with that emotional scar for nearly 50 years. Then, in 1995, a miracle unfolded. Two memorabilia collectors came across a strange miniature Oscar at a flea market. It was battered and aged, yet engraved with O'Brien's name. They contacted the Academy, who confirmed its authenticity. Within weeks, the statuette was returned to its rightful owner. Now in her late 60s, O'Brien broke down in tears during the handoff, overwhelmed that a piece of her childhood had been found. The Academy even held a small ceremony to mark the return, touched by the reunion. This isn't just a story about a stolen trophy, it's about memory loss and rediscovery. For Margaret O'Brien, getting her Oscar back wasn't about validation, it was about closure. And for Hollywood, it was a rare happy ending in a town that doesn't often deliver them. Rod Steiger's Oscar destroyed by fire. Rod Steiger earned his Oscar for In the Heat of the Night, but in the 90s, a fire consumed part of his mansion, melting his trophy. Rather than mourning, he embraced it as a symbol of his struggles with rejection and heartbreak. Declining a replacement, his warped Oscar told a brutal story of survival in a ruthless industry. Steiger's Hollywood mansion in Beverly Hills was filled with awards, scripts, and memorabilia. When an electrical fault sparked a fire, it swept through part of his home, partially melting the Oscar that was proudly displayed on a mantelpiece. To many, it was a devastating loss. But Steiger saw the melted statue as a grim metaphor for his life. He had battled inner demons, depression, failed marriages, and typecasting in the industry. He famously said, "Actors live in a constant state of rejection." The damaged Oscar mirrored how he felt forgotten after his peak years. Though the Academy offered to replace the statue, Steiger declined. The twisted, blackened Oscar became a haunting image, one that told the story not just of a win, but the cost of that victory. It symbolized everything he'd survived: war, failure, heartbreak, and still performing. Few actors wear their careers like wounds, but Steiger wore his with brutal honesty. His melted Oscar was more than a trophy. It was a testament to fragility of legacy. In a town that builds myths, even the most golden moments can go up in smoke. But what endured wasn't the statue. It was the unforgettable performances that earned it. Bette Davis's missing replacement statue. Bette Davis, Hollywood's sharpest star, won her first Academy Award in 1936 for Dangerous, though the official gold statuette wasn't yet standardized. When the new iconic Oscar design became the norm, she was sent a replacement statue to honor that win. That replacement Oscar, however, would later vanish into mystery. In the 1990s, decades after Davis's death, the missing statue suddenly reappeared in an auction house. To the shock of her family and fans, it turned out the Oscar had been sold without any record of consent from her estate. The Academy, standing firmly by their strict rule that Oscars cannot be sold, stepped in and bought the Oscar back for $79,500, rescuing it from private hands. This incident ignited a fierce debate about who truly owns an Oscar, the artist who earned it or the institution that awarded it. For Bette Davis, who spent her life fighting for artistic control and respect in an industry marked by power struggles, this felt like a bitter violation. Her Oscar, a symbol of her talent and hard-won honor, had been reduced to mere memorabilia, traded like a collector's item. The mystery of how the Oscar left her estate remains unsolved. Was it stolen, lost, or quietly sold? We may never know the full truth. But this lost Oscar story fits perfectly with the drama and intrigue that surrounded Davis's life and career. In her own way, even after death, she held the spotlight, leaving behind a controversy that no one could silence. Hattie McDaniel's Oscar lost amid segregation. Hattie McDaniel made history in 1940 as the first black person to win an Academy Award for her role as Mammy in Gone with the Wind. It was a bittersweet victory. McDaniel was forced to sit at a segregated table during the ceremony and wasn't even allowed to attend the film's Atlanta premiere. Yet, her acceptance speech, full of grace and quiet strength, remains one of the most moving in Oscar history. Her Oscar, however, would suffer a fate as unjust as the racial barriers she broke through. Unlike today's statues, McDaniel's award was a plaque given to supporting actors until 1943. She displayed it proudly at Howard University, a historically black institution, as a symbol of progress and pride. But in the 1960s, during a campus renovation, the plaque mysteriously disappeared. Some rumors claimed it was stolen during a protest. Others believed it was misplaced or destroyed by accident. No official investigation ever solved the mystery. The loss wasn't just physical, it was symbolic. McDaniel's Oscar represented more than her performance. It was a milestone for black artists in an era of deep segregation. Its disappearance echoed the way Hollywood often erases or overlooks black contributions. Over the decades, numerous efforts were made to recover or replace it, but the Academy never issued a replica. Only in 2021 did the Academy agree to fund a replacement memorial at Howard University, acknowledging the long overdue recognition McDaniel deserved. This wasn't just a stolen Oscar, it was a stolen legacy. Hattie McDaniel's career was marked by compromise and contradiction, but her achievement cracked the wall of Hollywood's racial exclusion. The vanishing of her Oscar remains a painful reminder of how fragile progress can be, and how long the road still is for true equality in the industry. Marlon Brando's protest and the missing Godfather Oscar. Marlon Brando wasn't just a movie star, he was a cultural earthquake when he won the Best Actor Oscar in 1973 for The Godfather. It should have been a moment of glory, but instead, Brando made headlines worldwide for refusing the award. His reason? A powerful protest against Hollywood's portrayal of Native Americans and the federal government's mistreatment of indigenous people during the Wounded Knee incident. In a bold move, he sent Sachin Littlefeather, a Native American activist, to decline the award on live television. The reaction was explosive. Some audience members booed, while others applauded. This unprecedented act transformed the Oscar ceremony into a platform for political expression. But what happened to the actual Oscar statue remains shrouded in mystery. Since Brando never accepted the award, the Academy never formally handed it over. Despite this, a Best Actor Oscar bearing Brando's name surfaced years later in a private collection, sparking rumors that someone close to the production may have taken possession of it. Brando himself remained indifferent. He never wanted the physical trophy to begin with. His defiance planted a seed that would influence generations of artists, redefining the Oscars as more than just a celebration of film, but a stage for activism. To this day, the whereabouts of Brando's Godfather Oscar are uncertain. Some claim it was quietly reclaimed by the Academy. Others say it was stored and forgotten. The greater mystery lies in Brando's detachment. For him, greatness lived not in a golden idol, but in truth, even when it made people uncomfortable. This lost Oscar remains one of Hollywood's most symbolic absences. Whoopi Goldberg's Oscar lost in transit. In 2002, Whoopi Goldberg sent her Oscar for the film Goes Back to the Academy for routine cleaning and polishing, a service offered to winners. But somewhere in the mailing process, the statuette disappeared. UPS confirmed that it had been delivered to the designated cleaning facility, but when the package was opened, the Oscar was gone. Panic set in. Whoopi, devastated, feared her most treasured professional honor had been stolen. The mystery deepened when days later the Oscar turned up in a dumpster at Ontario Airport in California. It was unharmed except for a few scratches. No one ever fully explained how it ended up there. The prevailing theory is that a worker stole it, panicked, and dumped it when media coverage exploded. The Academy quickly returned it to Goldberg, who reportedly laughed at the absurdity of the situation, but also took no chances afterward. She locked it up. This bizarre postal saga reveals how even an Oscar can be vulnerable to human error, carelessness, or simple greed. Goldberg handled the crisis with humor, but it was a close call. For a moment, it seemed Hollywood's highest honor could vanish like any ordinary package. Thankfully, this time, the story ended with a triumphant reunion. Olympia Dukakis' after-party theft and recovery. Just hours after winning her Oscar in 1988 for Moonstruck, Olympia Dukakis faced an unexpected shock. At a private after-party celebrating the ceremony, she proudly displayed her hard-earned Oscar on a table, ready to capture the joyous moments with friends. But amidst the crowd of celebrities, photographers, and staff, the golden statue mysteriously vanished. At first, Dukakis believed someone might have simply moved it. However, it quickly became clear that her Oscar had been stolen, right under the noses of Hollywood's elite. The audacity of the theft in such a high-profile setting sent ripples through the industry. Despite the glitter and fame surrounding the event, this theft was a stark reminder of how fragile even the grandest triumphs could be. Fortunately, the story took a fortunate turn. Just days later, the Oscar was anonymously returned to the Academy, sparing Dukakis the heartbreak of losing such a symbol of her lifelong dedication. The thief, likely overwhelmed by the growing media attention, never came forward, leaving the mystery unresolved. While shaken by the experience, Dukakis later found humor in the bizarre ordeal. She joked about waiting 50 years to win the Oscar only to nearly lose it in one night. This strange chapter in her career highlights not only the vulnerability of these prized awards, but also the transient nature of fame itself. For Olympia Dukakis, the theft became a curious footnote in a long career marked by quiet resilience and well-earned second chances. Through it all, her spirit remained unbroken, reminding us that no matter what happens to the trophies, it's the work behind them that truly lasts. Art Carney's hidden Oscar. Art Carney, already a beloved television comedian, surprised everyone when he won Best Actor in 1975 for Harry and Tonto, beating out heavyweights like Al Pacino and Jack Nicholson. But Carney was a modest man, uncomfortable with fame and the spotlight. Instead of proudly displaying his Oscar, he did something unexpected. He put it away in a box and stored it in his basement. Years passed, and during a home renovation, workers stumbled across a dusty, unopened box. Inside was Carney's Oscar, still in pristine condition, wrapped carefully in old newspaper. Carney later admitted he didn't like showing off, and didn't believe the trophy defined him. He preferred to focus on his work, his family, and his privacy away from Hollywood's glittering world. Carney's story stands out in an industry obsessed with recognition and ego. While others would build glass cases for their Oscars, Carney treated his more like an old photograph, something important, but not central to his identity. When the award was finally displayed decades later, it became a symbol of humility. In a business built on ego, his Oscar represented something rare: quiet rebellion. The statue wasn't lost, stolen, or destroyed. It was hidden by choice. And in that choice, Carney showed that true greatness doesn't need to be shouted from the rooftops. His legacy wasn't locked in gold, but in the work and the respect he quietly earned. James Baskett's lost historic honor. James Baskett's story is one of the most bittersweet in Oscar history. In 1948, Baskett received an honorary Academy Award for his portrayal of Uncle Remus in Disney's Song of the South. He was the first black male actor to receive an Oscar, an honorary one, since the Academy didn't recognize his role under the competitive categories due to racial politics. Walt Disney himself petitioned the Academy for the award, but after Baskett died just months later, the fate of his Oscar faded into silence. No one knows where the Oscar ended up, not even his surviving relatives. Some believe it remained with Disney's archives, others claim it was kept by Baskett's widow and later lost during a move. Despite his historic win, the Academy made no effort to track or preserve his award, nor did Disney, who once championed him, take steps to honor his memory when the studio distanced itself from Song of the South due to its controversial racial themes. What makes Baskett's story especially tragic is the cruel contradiction he faced. Though he gave Disney one of its most iconic performances, he wasn't even allowed to attend the film's Atlanta premiere because of segregation laws. His Oscar, rather than being a triumph, became a symbol of a Hollywood that used black talent but discarded their legacy in modern times. Film historians have called for the Academy and Disney to publicly honor Baskett with a memorial or replica Oscar. So far, nothing has been done. The physical award may be gone, but what's worse is the erasure of a trailblazer's legacy. Baskett broke barriers in a time when that could cost a career or a life. The lost Oscar is more than a mystery. It's a moral wound that Hollywood has yet to acknowledge. Vivien Leigh's Oscars amid personal turmoil. Two-time Oscar winner Vivien Leigh faced bipolar disorder, a broken marriage, and a life that unraveled behind closed doors. She won Best Actress for Gone with the Wind in 1939, and again for A Streetcar Named Desire in 1952, victories celebrating her haunting beauty and tragic brilliance. But her greatest triumphs were overshadowed by personal chaos. During a move in the 1960s, Leigh reportedly lost track of her Gone with the Wind Oscar. Items were misplaced or discarded amid the turmoil, and for years, the statue was considered lost. Rumors swirled, with some claiming her ex-husband, Laurence Olivier, had kept it. Others whispered it had been sold during one of her emotional breakdowns. After her death in 1967, the Oscar was discovered in a private collection in New York, bought anonymously at an estate sale. The Academy launched an inquiry, but due to disputed ownership, the Oscar remains in private hands to this day. The disappearance of the Oscar mirrored Leigh's disintegration, a woman who gave the world so much, slowly unraveling privately as her greatest symbol of triumph vanished. Vivien Leigh is still remembered as one of cinema's brightest stars, but her missing Oscar serves as a stark reminder that no matter the glory, fame, and fortune can slip away in moments of crisis. Her brilliance lit up the screen, yet her Oscar deserved better than to become a collector's trinket. Paul Newman's near-auction disaster. Paul Newman cherished his 1987 Oscar for The Color of Money, but after his death in 2008, the awards journey almost took a shocking turn. A batch of his personal belongings, including the Oscar, was put up for sale by an anonymous associate. This move violated the Academy's strict 1950 rule, which prohibits winners from selling their Oscars without first offering them back to the Academy for just $1. Newman himself had signed this agreement when he received the award, intending to protect its legacy. However, the Oscar was listed through a third party, catching many off guard. Newman's estate quickly scrambled to halt the auction, concerned the trophy's sale would tarnish his reputation and legacy. The auction was stopped just in time, but images of the Oscar had already circulated online, reigniting debates over who really owns an Oscar, the artist or the institution that bestows it. Known for his integrity and philanthropic spirit, Paul Newman would have never approved of profiting from his award. His family later condemned the attempted sale as deeply disrespectful. Though the Oscar was recovered and secured by the estate, the incident left a bitter stain on Newman's otherwise graceful legacy. Unlike theft or destruction, this near-auction disaster was a stark reminder that even the most cherished symbols of honor can be threatened by greed and mismanagement. In the end, Newman's Oscar was safe, but the scare exposed the fragile line between personal legacy and public heritage in Hollywood. Ingrid Bergman's family's lost Oscar. Ingrid Bergman was cinema royalty, winning 3 Oscars and surviving one of the biggest scandals in Hollywood history. After her controversial affair and marriage to director Roberto Rossellini in the 1950s, Bergman was shunned by American audiences. Yet, she made a triumphant return by winning the Best Supporting Actress Oscar in 1975 for Murder on the Orient Express. However, the fate of that Oscar would become a quiet drama within her own family, almost lost forever. After Bergman's death in 1982, her awards and memorabilia were divided among her children. But one of her Oscars, believed to be either the 1956 Anastasia win or the Orient Express Award, was later discovered missing from the family estate. It had been unknowingly sold or misplaced during a European estate inventory review. Her daughter, Isabella Rossellini, became alarmed when she discovered it years later in a private auction catalog. Rossellini acted quickly, contacting the Academy and threatening legal action if the item wasn't pulled from sale. Thankfully, it was withdrawn and negotiations led to its return, but the emotional toll remained. Rossellini publicly stated that her mother never viewed the Oscar as a commodity. She cherished it not as a prize, but as a symbol of the return of her dignity. The lost and found Oscar mirrored Bergman's own career, cast out and reclaimed. Her legacy endured, but the temporary loss of the award was a painful reminder of how easily history can slip away, even within families. In the end, the Oscar was returned not just to a home, but to a rightful legacy Bergman had spent a lifetime earning back. Joan Crawford's missing Oscar mystery. Joan Crawford's 1946 Oscar win for Mildred Pierce was more than just a career triumph. It was a public redemption. After facing a slump in her popularity, this award revived her stardom and symbolized a hard-won return to the spotlight. Yet, after her death in 1977, the fate of her Oscar became a mystery as dramatic as her life. Crawford's estate was notoriously disorganized, with multiple family members and legal representatives struggling to claim various possessions. Items vanished, were sold, or misidentified during chaotic estate settlements. The Mildred Pierce Oscar was last seen in the 1980s, then disappeared without a trace. Some believe it was quietly sold to cover estate debts, while others suspect the collector secreted it away in a private Hollywood memorabilia vault. Adding to this, the rift between Joan and her daughter, Christina, whose notorious memoir Mommy Dearest exposed family turmoil, complicated the legacy further. Christina claimed she never knew what happened to the Oscar and suspected foul play. The Academy made efforts to trace the statue, but the trail went cold. Crawford's missing Oscar remains one of the few confirmed lost Academy Awards with no known whereabouts. For a woman obsessed with image and control, losing her greatest career triumph is a cruel irony. Though the statue is gone, Joan Crawford's fierce impact on Hollywood endures, and the mystery of her lost Oscar lingers on like the closing shot of a film noir, sultry, unresolved, and unforgettable. Charlie Chaplin's stolen honor. Charlie Chaplin didn't win a competitive Oscar during his golden years, but his impact on cinema was undeniable, earning him an honorary Oscar in 1972 for his incalculable contribution to the film industry. That night was one of the most emotional in Oscar history, with Chaplin receiving a 12-minute standing ovation as he returned to the U.S. after decades in exile during the McCarthy era. However, the Oscar itself met with a tragic fate. After Chaplin's death in 1977, his house in Switzerland was burglarized, and among the stolen items was the honorary Oscar. Despite international police reports and efforts, the award was never recovered. Chaplin's family even offered a reward, but the statue seemed to vanish from the face of the earth. Some speculate it was melted down for gold, while others believe it lies hidden in a private collection, buried under shame or secrecy. The loss of this Oscar carries deep symbolism, representing not merely grief, but a second betrayal of one of cinema's most cherished figures. Chaplin's return to Hollywood was a healing moment. A man once vilified finally embraced. That Oscar stood for forgiveness, legacy, and reconciliation. The Academy never replaced the stolen Oscar, but Chaplin's family honored his memory by erecting a museum in his name in Switzerland. Still, the absence of the original statuette remains an open wound, a haunting reminder that even the greatest comedy icon was not immune to life's cruelties behind the curtain. Heath Ledger's Oscar wrapped in family drama. Heath Ledger's 2009 posthumous Oscar for his haunting role as the Joker in The Dark Knight carried immense emotional weight, but behind the scenes, the golden statue sparked a complex family dispute. Ledger died tragically young, and the award was accepted by his family on his behalf. However, soon after, tensions arose between his parents and his ex-partner, Michelle Williams, who is also the mother of their daughter, Matilda. Discussion surfaced about who should keep the Oscar, highlighting the difficult realities of legacy, even after a brilliant career cut short. Matilda was named the rightful heir, but since she was a toddler at the time, the Oscar had to be held in legal trust until she came of age. At one point, the Academy even considered reclaiming the statue to prevent further conflict. Eventually, the family agreed to allow Michelle Williams to keep the award for safekeeping. This behind-the-scenes drama exposes a sad truth. Even the most iconic moments in cinema can become sources of tension when the people closest to them are divided. The Oscar itself, while representing Ledger's stunning artistic achievement, also became a symbol of the heartbreak and legal complexities left in the wake of his passing. Today, the statue is reportedly secure with Matilda's guardianship, but its journey reminds us how fragile legacies can be. For Heath Ledger, the Oscar was more than just a trophy. It was a farewell, a frozen moment of brilliance that no one could have predicted would turn into a family battle. And in that bittersweet story, the golden statue takes on a deeper meaning, a reminder that sometimes, behind the lights and applause, even greatness carries invisible scars. Behind every lost, stolen, or melted Oscar lies a tale of passion, pain, and complicated legacies. These statues aren't just gold, they embody triumph and vulnerability. While some have vanished, the true legacy lies in the performances and the stories behind them, reminding us that glory is fragile but unforgettable. Each story on this list reveals far more than misplaced trophies. They expose the human side of Hollywood's glamorous facade, where victories are intertwined with heartbreak, betrayal, and sometimes redemption. These Oscars, whether returned, melted, or missing, serve as powerful symbols of the sacrifices and struggles behind the spotlight. They remind us that for every shining moment on screen, there is a deeper narrative of resilience and loss. In a world obsessed with fame and recognition, these mysterious disappearances urge us to look beyond the glimmer, to appreciate the stories and the people that make Hollywood magical. So, whether an Oscar disappears in a fire, is stolen in plain sight, or lost in the chaos of life, the true measure of greatness remains in the impact left on audiences and history. These lost Oscars, with all their secrets and shadows, keep the legends alive, inviting us to remember that behind the gold are unforgettable human stories that no theft or loss can ever erase.